Nooks is the first agent workspace for sales, a unified platform where AI agents and human sales reps work together in real time. Instead of getting buried in manual tasks, you work alongside AI that prospects, prioritizes, and drafts outreach for you. When it comes to outbound, stop managing sequences and start selling with Nooks. Visit nooks.ai today. That's NOOKS.ai.
Hey, we're here at one of my favorite places in the world, Nashville, Tennessee, at Ramsey Solutions, the house that Dave Ramsey built. We're going to be spending some time with Jason Williams, who is the president of EntreLeadership. Now, EntreLeadership is an amazing book if you've read that, but it's also the engine that we use at Sales Gravy to drive our operations. We use Jason's coaches, we use events to build our leadership team and make them stronger. Jason and I share a love for selling, and I'm going to tell a story about how I first met Jason. And so we're going to spend some time just talking about sales. You run a large sales organization. He's got a number. Before we get started, I want you to go check out the OutBound conference. Go to outboundconference.com. This year, we're going to be in Las Vegas at Red Rocks and almost sold out of tickets. So you want to go right now to outboundconference.com and grab your ticket before they're gone. Jason, thank you for inviting me into your house. This is a great place to be.
I'm so honored. I've watched the Sales Gravy podcast since it started. I've read your books. When I was a young salesperson, somebody handed me People by You, and I read it from cover to cover. It changed who I was as a salesperson. I used to make my team all read it. You know, fanatical prospecting. It's like you talk about what we do for you guys. You've done that for my life, my sales teams I've led over the years. So it's awesome.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the very first time I met you.
I do, actually. Because I was like, that's Jeb Blount. This is awesome.
So y'all had invited me to speak at one of your events, and I was doing fanatical prospecting.
Yeah.
I've never been here before, and I got here, and I had no idea of the scope of the Ramsey organization. I'd done an event prior to that in a church near here for your financial piece of financial advisors, I think.
Yeah. Which
was a blast. So I got invited to this. There's like 2,900, 3,000 people downstairs that are all here. What is this? Mike Rowe was on the stage before me. You know, I love Mike Rowe, and I'm thinking, I have to follow Mike Rowe? Like, how can this possibly be? So I'm just trying to get my head straight, and I walk upstairs, and you said, "Hey, Jeb," and there's just like this friendly face, and you know, you had fanatical prospecting, and we used your stuff, and all of a sudden, I just calmed down and went, "Okay, everything's going to be okay."
Yeah.
So it was just like, there was one of those things that I remember because you made me feel so welcome and at home here.
Well, you were one of our people. You know, we always like to put an appetizer before the main course. So micro being your appetizer, it always makes sense that way. When I knew that you were on our stage, I knew I wanted to meet you because of the work that your team has done to help salespeople all over the world. I'm super excited about meeting people that have had impacts on my life. So it was neat.
So you have really grown here with EntreLeadership, and I mean this when I say it. You know, we as an organization, my wife Carrie, who is our chief operating officer, she's a massive EntreLeadership fan, a massive Dave Ramsey fan. And one time, I'll tell you the secret. I was gonna buy a boat, like I wanted a boat, and I kept talking to her about it. And we were going to go to bed, and I went to go to bed, and there's a Dave Ramsey book on my pillow in the bedroom. So needless to say, I didn't get the boat.
That time. Hopefully that time. Hopefully you got it now.
I got it now.
Yeah, that's good.
She bought it. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Off of Facebook. Tell me about your journey here with EntreLeadership and the work that you do for businesses. So I think it's important just to give the context about you and your team and what you do.
Yeah, so EntreLeadership was birthed out of Dave realizing as his organization grew that he was the bottleneck. He was the lid on our organization, and he actually needed to start scaling leaders. So he started teaching these internal Ramsey principles of what leadership looks like, and he started inviting people at Ramsey. He said, "Hey, if you want to be in leadership someday, come to this class." And he would do it at 4:30 in the afternoon. Back in those days, everybody worked 8 to 5. From 4:30 to 5, I will teach you, and you'll be on my dime, and you stay for the extra half hour on your dime, and I'll teach you. And that's really what EntreLeadership started as, is we knew we needed to scale our company. And so Dave looked up after a few times of doing this, and, you know, Jeb would bring his buddy that owns a auto repair shop down the street and would ask Dave, like, "Hey, can I bring my brother? Can I bring my buddy?" Dave was like, "Sure, we got room in the thing." And he looked up, and Dave's a funny salesperson. He's like, "I knew when I looked out and there were more people in the room that didn't work for Ramsey than did, that there was a business here and it was a product. And so he really started that with that heart of like, I just want to teach people how to lead. And he didn't do it with any intentionality, which is a lot of the things that we do as business leaders. You just kind of have this idea. And so I came into this, I came from a family of small business owners. My great-grandfather, when he came to this country, started a company. My grandfather ran it. And when I was born, my dad's generation was running it. And it was mostly all-consuming to our family, and it really destroyed our family. And so I started following Dave a long time ago, like your wife, and was a huge Dave fan. And EntreLeadership became this thing that as a person, I was in a sales role at the time. I really knew I wanted to be in leadership, and Dave had earned the right to talk to me about my money. And then he started talking about leadership. I was like, hey, I want to learn about this. And as soon as he started talking about family business, small business, I was like, oh, I'm hooked. This is the lifestyle I came out of. So I came to Ramsey about almost 6 years ago now as the director of sales. My previous career was in sales. I was in medical device sales. Started as an associate sales rep, the lowest of the salespeople. Rose up to lead the Southeast for a large medical device company. And I knew there was an opening here. And I was like, I just want to come and help these people, help small business owners, and do something I love, which is sales. You said that. I'm a sales guy. Like our sales team is the fuel of the engine here. It's awesome. So that's how I've gotten here.
That's a big transformation if you think about it, from being in medical device, running a big division, and really a different type of sell and a lot of really cool stuff, to moving from that type of a sell to really a purpose-driven, mission-driven environment.
It's interesting that you say that, because I looked at medical device, the specific devices that the team that I worked on sold were helping people get back to an active lifestyle. And that's a big passion for a lot of people. And so I came out of a world of athletics, went into medical device. And when I did that, there was a passion behind that too. So there's a purpose. It's just a different type of purpose. The biggest change was we were selling a physical, tangible product in my old company to a very set number of customers. To really, at Ramsey, we sell a lot of, you mentioned it, events, we sell coaching, we sell digital products. Those are things, it's like selling air. A lot of times you have to talk about what it's going to benefit you when you're done, but you don't actually you don't hand the person something. Gone are the days where Ticketmaster actually mails you tickets, right? And so you're really you're doing all these things digitally, but there is a huge purpose behind it, because we know that business owners that are burnt out, that really are having a hard time managing their business, there is a way that they can actually set up their business to not only scale with them, but that they can have a whole lot of fun while they're doing it. And that's our passion here.
If you're an entrepreneur listening, I'll tell you, there's lots to learn from EntreLeadership. An easy place to start is just go to the EntreLeadership podcast. Yeah. I listen to it every single week. I also advertise on it, but I listen to it every week. What I love about it is I just like listening to other people's stories. Like you're telling their story, and whether they're in a business like yours or they're not in a business like yours, or they're in a different stage than you are, there's just something that you can, if you're a business owner, that you can step in their shoes and relate to so much of the pain and the issues. Sometimes I'm yelling at the speaker in my car because I'm like, they're saying something, like, no, don't do that, but it's like the best podcast as a leader to feel like there are other people out there like you. Yeah. And that's what I think so cool about the EntreLeadership events, is that when we go, we're meeting people and we go, hey, you having a hard time hiring people? And they're like, yeah, I'm having a hard time hiring people. And you realize that all of these businesses, no matter what they do, they're all experiencing similar issues.
Yeah. I mean, there's a famous old book, and one of the writers in that book says there's nothing new under the sun. Like sales leaders everywhere struggle with the same thing. Salespeople everywhere struggle with the same basic things. Business owners, it's the exact same thing. You take a plumber and you put them with somebody that is a physician, and you put them in the same room as a restaurateur, and you put them in the same room and you have them talk about life. They're all wrestling with the same stuff.
Same stuff.
That's one of the things, the industry, there is a huge place for industry type events and places where people can go and learn about that specific industry. But when you do that, a lot of times the focus is on external pressures on that specific industry versus the universal problems we all have, which is people. People are our greatest blessing. They're also our greatest source of headaches. It is, I don't know exactly how to do what I'm doing, and I don't know how to grow and scale. I just really need a plan. I don't have enough time to do the things. There's just these universal things that we found every business owner, and honestly, most business leaders have. So,
and we find, in our space, because we work with, when we work with small businesses, usually Sales Grave University, so they get into our team hubs for their sales teams. fractional sales leadership. So we'll go into a scaling business and take over the leadership team as a sales leaders and help them get a permanent leader to come in, because a lot of small businesses make grave mistakes, bring in the wrong sales leader that just blows everything up. And the one common thing that we run into with small businesses, especially in the B2B space, is you've got this business owner who started a business and they've been the chief salesperson. They've grown it. They've got all the clients, and then they got to bring their first new salespeople or person on. And they come to ask me like, what do I do? And I'm interested to get your opinion, because my opinion, what I always say to them, look, it's going to be the hardest hire that you make, and you're going to screw it up. So the first thing you have to do is go look in the mirror and get okay with failure, because you're going to make a mistake. If you hit it out of the park on the first one, God bless you. But most of you are going to fail. And where business leaders really hurt themselves is they hire a salesperson, they fail spectacularly, and then they get jaded, and then they won't hire the next salesperson. Right. I'm curious about when you're talking to sales leaders, if they ask you about that, are you running into the same thing?
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. What I've seen is it is more of an emotional decision than it is actually a hiring decision, because that leader has to be okay. You said it with failure.
Yep.
And they have to be okay letting other people make choices that maybe they wouldn't make. Anytime a salesperson goes into sales leadership, that's one of the biggest issues you see, is that, well, my way is worked and I'm the only one that knows the right way. Well, that's actually not true. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And so it's an emotional decision for that leader to step out of the way and hand their baby over to someone else. And as we said, like sales organization, the salesperson is the lifeblood of the organization. If there's no sales, that organization will die. And so it's really hard for them to emotionally understand that it is okay to hand this over to someone else. Yep. They also have to be their coach and their cheerleader, and they have to be their kindergarten teacher and pick them up after they bruise their knee and pat them on the rear end and say, hey, it's going to be okay. Go out there and make another call, because that's what we do. But it is a very emotional thing for these business owners, especially early in their sales, handing off sales, because they are the king of the castle or the queen of the castle, depending on who's in that seat.
And it's infinitely harder for the business owner. Like if you're a small business owner, because you bring this new salesperson on, like you said, they need love, care, they need coaching. You have a way of selling things. And often I meet founders who have a way of selling things, but they can't explain to anybody else. Like they're complete savants. So they bring a salesperson in and they're like, well, just go do what I do. Yeah. And the salesperson cannot interpret that. In fact, I was in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and founder of a $20 million business. It's grown really, really well. And he's put together a decent sales team, but they've been failing. And at one point in this meeting, I said, you talk, I'm going to interpret. And so he was saying the words, and they're all like this. And I started interpreting, because that's exactly what I've been trying to say to them. But because he was a savant, he just couldn't explain it. So sometimes leaders have a hard time just bringing the person on and getting them ready to go. But if you're a leader, even if you can do that, and you're twirling 18 different plates in the process, and that salesperson gets left on their own, in a lot of cases, they're either going to fail or they're going to underperform.
Yes.
And along with that, and this is important, you hire that one salesperson, they're all by themselves on the boat. They're the only person there, and they're not like any of the others. So they don't have a companion. If you don't jump in and help them, sometimes they'll just leave because they just don't feel like they're supposed to be there.
Yeah, they're solo artists, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to join a rock band.
Yes,
and they wanted to go in front of a concert hall and or play in front of a stadium. And really, what they're doing is they're basically with their guitar by themselves on a stage, and there's no audience. That's a really hard situation for any salesperson. It's hard for any person, but it's really hard. And I think you hit the nail on the head about translating. Dave Ramsey is probably the greatest salesperson I've ever been around. And I can't do what he does, but what he's allowed us to do is to create processes that that is scalable.
Yes.
That's the problem. It's about scalability. Do you want to be the person who gets all the accolades, or do you want to actually scale this thing to have it bigger impact? Right. That's the important part.
Well, you talk about the treadmill operator, but getting a sales force in place that can handle customers, however you go to market, right? But who can deal with your customers, handle them, is a core part of getting off the treadmill. If you don't do that, you're going to be stuck forever.
Forever. And we have stages of business, and we say the treadmill operator is a person who all of the business relies on you as the business owner. And if you don't work, there's no money coming in. And that is a really tough situation, because in order for you to scale that business, all you're doing on that treadmill is hitting the button that makes it go faster. And eventually you're going to trip and you're going to fall off the treadmill and your business will crumble. And that's not a good situation. So it is about starting to delegate some of those responsibilities. And delegation is a really hard word because you have to delegate people that you believe in, that you believe their competency and they can actually do the job and they have the character to carry your business forward. And that's a really hard situation for the first time that somebody does that, it is a big emotional thing.
So that brings the next step. Like, okay, so you get a couple of salespeople. Now you're the business owner and you got some salespeople in there. And now you can see, hey, there's something bigger out here and I want to grow this business. So you got operations, you've got finance, you've got all these other things, and you got these couple of 3 crazy salespeople, and you realize at some point that you need a leader. And you can make really big mistakes at that point. And I would say probably the biggest mistakes that we've made as an organization, we've brought in some dud salespeople, but we brought in the wrong sales leaders, and it disrupts the culture at a massive scale. Because a lot of times the sales leaders, again, they're on their own. Sales is a different kind of animal than the rest of your departments. And sales leaders who can't get along with everybody else, they just start blowing things up. It's one of the reasons why businesses will bring our team in temporarily to fill a gap. We call it fractional sales leadership, just to fill the gap so that we can help them select the right person. So they're not making really hard, what we call them rash, impulsive decisions because they're under pressure. But you said something, we were talking before we jumped on the podcast about the value of a leader, like how important they are to the organization. And I can't remember the exact words you said, but if you can remember, I want you to say those again.
Yeah, I've said that the sales team is the fuel to the organization. The sales leader is the octane that you added. You add this octane additive and it makes everything click faster and it makes the rocket ship actually gain a lot of momentum. The right sales leader. Now, the wrong sales leader will actually stomp out whatever fire you have going on. You've called that out. It's a super important hire.
So what if you were sitting down with someone who said, okay, I want to hire a sales manager, whether they're in a big company or a small company, maybe we call them your checklist of these are the things I'm looking for a sales leader. This is non-negotiable for me, which is hard in an interview because a lot of these people are really, really good at interviews.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why we take our time with interviewing. We do that at Ramsey. I've hired sales leaders here. The thing that I would say, there's a couple. They have to be aligned with your values. It starts with can this person hold the same water in the same way that you have as the leader, as the owner of this organization? If they can, if there's a value misalignment, then that's not a good thing. That's a non-starter. The second thing, I've made the mistake, and maybe you have too. I'm sure you've been around organizations. You just promote the best salesperson. That's not always a winning formula. Sometimes it is, but the reason why it works is that person has leadership abilities. Some of these people are sales savants, and if you're looking internally or externally, you may come across somebody that has this resume and they've hit every President's Club award. They've done all these things. You really have to dig into their leadership because being a leader of people is different than being able to build a relationship with a client and convince them that the solution that you offer is the right thing for them. And so that's they have to be super high EQ. They have to have super high intelligence because salespeople are really difficult to lead. We're a group of people that if you don't have street cred, if you can't do the job, we're going to eat you alive. And so that person needs to have some ability to sell. They have to have some success in the background, but it's not necessarily the best salesperson, the best sales numbers. It's the person that feels like that you feel like they can lead the team.
I think it's when I talk to young salespeople and throughout my corporate career, when I was working with salespeople, I would sit down with folks and say, look, here's the deal. If you're an individual contributor, the only person you need to worry about is you.
That's true.
You got to go hit your number. You got to go home. Yeah, you work on a team of people. We were interviewing Pat Lencioni earlier today, and he says a sales team's like a golf team. There's a lot of individual scores. They may add up to a team score, but it's not like a basketball team where everybody's working together. So the individual is out there trying to get the very best score that they possibly can for the team. I look at them and say, you could be selfish. As soon as you become a leader, it is no longer about you.
That's right.
You have to be willing to put the needs and the desires and the best interest of your team ahead of your best interest. And if you're not willing to do that, this is the wrong thing for you because you're going to be crazy miserable.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many young leaders have had that conversation with. They want to be in sales leader, and then they get into sales leadership and they can't actualize that. They go back to, I'm the most important thing here, and you're not. Now, I would tell you exactly the same thing you said. I say it a different way, but I say the leader is the pivot point on which the sales team is going to perform, and it's the most important part of the sales team. But to the sales leader, you are not the most important part of the sales team. Those folks are. And finding people who can do that is difficult. But the number one mistake that every company makes, big, small, whatever, is they take the very best performer and they go, you go be the leader. And I've seen more sales teams get blown up by that than anything else. The other problems you have is, so you don't have a natural sales leader on your team. You go get someone from the outside, you bring them on, and they don't understand your culture. They don't understand the team. Salespeople will eat you alive if you don't. And those folks mess up. So one of the things that I did early on, and I was running a large sales team, about 1,000 people in the sales team, but we were having that problem, and they were blowing up the sales team, and a lot of them were holding us hostage. Like, there would be our top performer, and they would go, if you don't promote me, I'm leaving.
Yes.
We developed this thing called Sales Manager Mentor.
Okay.
And what we did was we identified people, and they would self-identify, who said, I want to move into leadership. And we put together like a 12-month program. So they would learn how to look at a P&L. They would learn how the business runs. They would learn how supply chain works. They would learn all of the intricacies of the business. And we would bring in a couple of experts. Like, we might bring someone like you in to come have a conversation with them. And they would have to mentor someone that was on our team as well. Like a new person, they would have to manage them. And they had to keep their numbers up at the same time. Mm-hmm. What was interesting is we would have a handful of them that would self-select out. They were holding us hostage, and then they would go, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I'm very happy being an individual contributor. But the rest of them, we would have a group of young leaders on our bench that would be ready to go. And this is hard for businesses because often we're myopically focused on what's right in front of us. Mm-hmm. So you got to be thinking about your bench strength 12 months to Absolutely. 2 years down the road. And then we would have those young leaders who would come through the program and pass. A few of them wouldn't pass. And when we were ready for a leader to move into a slot, we already had someone. Part of the deal was you have to move. So you have to be willing to move.
Yeah.
Those leaders would take those jobs and still make the same mistakes that young leaders make. The difference is they knew they made the mistake. So they could stop and go, okay, I screwed that up. Here's why I screwed it up. Let me go fix it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, it's hard for a small business to get there, but as you start moving, as a consultant, I probably spend more time with my clients having conversations with them about what's happening 3 years from now, and getting to think about who are you putting in place that you can grow.
You're right. Some small businesses have a hard time with that, but it's the mentality that you should have as soon as you start your organization. Mm-hmm. Who are the people that I'm going to bring up with me? As I grow, as the leader, I am the lid on this business. I have to grow. I have to become better. And who around me do I also see that has that hunger? It's a balance of humility and confidence. Salespeople are not going to respond to a not confident person.
Right.
And so you have to have this outward confidence, but you also have the humility to take your bumps. One of the things that we do here when we identify somebody who's an individual contributor today is we start bringing them into smaller conversations. We talk about an initiative that we want some advice on, and we let them be part of that process. But one of the other things I talk to them about is because most people think that leadership is just going to play golf all day. And really, they don't understand that, like, in sales leadership specifically, you have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with your team. If you set the proper expectations, and then if you do it right, you get to hold them accountable to those expectations, whether it's the activity, the front end activity, the call volume, the prospecting, the end results. And bringing a person who is interested in leadership, like I was when I was a young salesperson, into those conversations of like, I had to have an uncomfortable conversation today because someone wasn't hitting their number. And you don't get into the very specifics so they don't know what it is, or you maybe throw scenarios at them and you just see how they respond. That's a really important way to help build your bench depth. Identify those people that you think have those qualities and then give them an opportunity to show that. And then know they're going to screw it up because I screwed it up and you probably screwed it up and Dave definitely screwed it up. And so like we have to have the grace with people to say like, we're not batting 1,000, any of us. So like, let's just be real and say, hey, okay, you didn't win that one. What did you learn? And you coach them through that, just like a good coach would.
I think sales leadership different than the other leadership positions. And I don't want to minimize what other leaders go through, but sales is just a it's a different animal because salespeople are crazy.
Yes.
They are literally out of their minds most of the time just because it's so emotional. As you know, as a sales leader, especially when I was a frontline leader with my group of salespeople, like I had 10 salespeople at one point. Yeah. I loved it. It was my favorite job because I had my own tribe. They were mine. Yes. And they would do anything for me. And it took a long time to pull them together, but I loved it. But it was perpetual conflict.
Yeah.
Always. And if you didn't have the courage to stand there and, tell someone this is wrong, you wouldn't make it.
That's, I have been there many times. The benefit of sales is it's very objective. The downside of sales is the personalities that you deal with, because they're a lot like us. They're go-getters. They're high D. They're driving. They have very strong opinions held very strongly. And that's where the conflict has. But honestly, when you build the trust that you did in that team, like you can have those hard the conflict moments, and you can walk out of there and be actually closer, have a better understanding of it. But the beauty of leading salespeople is there's objective measurements. There's people on our team today, we have over 80 people on the Entre team. There are people who it's really kind of squishy on whether they're doing their job or not, because their work doesn't directly correlate to an output. With salespeople, the beautiful thing is, did you hit your activity goals? Did you make the number of prospecting calls, or did you go visit the number of customers you needed to? What do your numbers look at the end of the month, at the quarter, and at the year? It's pretty objective. So that's probably why they're crazy, is because we're all like, the crazy thing I always say about sales, the benefit of sales is that you can create, really control your own income. The problem with sales is at the beginning of the month, the counter goes back to zero and you got to start again.
As we dive into sales leadership, adding to this is the fact that your salespeople create conflict in the rest of the organization. And it may be a little bit different here, but
it's not.
But anywhere you go, like the salespeople they're trying to get something through. They're trying to sell something. They're pushing the organization. And a great sales team, and I tell this to C-level folks, I said, if your sales team's not making you crazy, you got the wrong people. Because they should be the signal to your organization that there's something there, something needs to change. As the sales leader, this is the analogy that I give them, or how I explain it. Your job is to be an umbrella. Mm-hmm. Your job is to put an umbrella of team, and no matter what's coming at them, you're protecting them. But at the same time, you have to be the mediator between the sales team and the rest of the organization, because if you're not, the rest of the organization will also snuff the fire out.
Yes.
Because they'll eject the sales team, but you need both of them together working, because the sales team without the rest of the organization will burn the place to the ground. And the rest of the organization would just as soon not have salespeople because they're all a pain in the rear end.
That's so true. And I love that analogy, the umbrella, because as the sales leader, the pivot is such a great analogy. I have said sometimes that the sales leader is the neck of the sales organization, or of the whole organization, because they tell the sales team what to look at. And you as a sales leader, you protect them from noise, and you shield them from themselves. I've never thought of the umbrella, but I love that analogy. I'm going to use it. I'll give you credit the first time, but then after that, it's mine.
I love that. Well, I love that you say that the neck that's pointing them where to go, because what I feel like the sales leader's job is to get their people in position to win.
Yes. And
that means sometimes tough conversations. And I'm going to tell you a story about my best sales manager ever, and I'd love to hear yours. But sure. The best sales manager I ever worked for, you're a big fan of fanatical prospecting, I think. So in the front of that book, I dedicated that book to Bob Blackwell. I talk about him all the time. One of the greatest sales leaders ever. When I first met him, I hated him. He was just he would poke you and push you and drive you. But man, did he have my number. Like I would walk in and go, I'm going to close this deal. And he would go, no, you're not. And I'm going to close this deal. There's no way possible you can close this deal. You're wasting your time. Let it go. And I would die to prove him wrong. I would find a way to do it. And he knew that about me. So he was such a great leader because he knew all the individual people. We had a dream team, but he knew everybody. He knew how to punch everybody's number. But he was the quintessential sales leader that had the courage to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. And he was nice and laughing one day, and you're sitting there talking about a deal, and he is peeling it apart the next day. In my book, Sales EQ, we talk about murder boarding. You would sit in his office and he would take that deal and he'd kill it in about a million different ways. But in the middle of that, you'd have an aha moment and go, I do not know that. I don't have an answer to that. And you knew that you didn't want to go in a closing meeting and have something come out of left field that you didn't know and blindside you. But it was his it was his courage as a leader to just tell you the truth. Yeah. And even when you were doing well, I remember a year where I'm the number one sales rep in the company. It was March. I could have gone to bed and woken up in Maui at President's Club and still been number one. I mean, I sold more than anybody in the 100-year history of the company sold. And it was March, and I was starting to like get a little complacent. And he came to me and said, I got news for you. You keep doing this right here, you're not going to make it to President's Club because you're not going to be on my team. Now, you think about that.
Yeah.
I'm your number one performer, not just in your world, but I'm talking about in an entire Fortune 200 company. And you're willing to tell me that if you don't keep the foot on the accelerator, you're out. Like, that was Bob. But it was a seminal moment for me because he was a leader that had the courage and the love for me to say, you're better than this. And I'm just curious about your experience with.
Man, I want to meet Bob. I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. I've had 3 leaders that come to my mind when you ask the question about the best sales leader that I've ever had. But the one that kept coming to mind was a guy named Steve Jenkins. He's the first guy that hired me. And Steve is a little bit different than Bob. That's the thing, is that they come in all different shapes and sizes. But what you actually said, and I think it may have been a throwaway comment, but what you said about Bob was really true about Steve, is he knew each of us individually. He knew our motivators. He knew the things that would cause us to go that extra mile or the way to challenge us. He didn't yell at everyone, and he also didn't coddle everyone. He knew when to be that hard Marine drill sergeant person, and he also knew when to like put his arm around you and be like, hey man, let's go get a beer. And that meant a lot to me because not every single person needs the same thing every single time.
Yes.
And so he had that emotional intelligence about his sales team. The thing about Steve is I was so new as a salesperson when he hired me, and he really took a lot of time with me, rode with me a ton, which, if you're a sales leader, you spending all your time and you have 20-something people with one person, it's not scalable. And he spent a ton of time with me, mentoring me, and he would pick up the phone anytime I called, and he would challenge me. We were territory partners. He would challenge the territory partner and me, and he would do similar things. He's like, I don't really think that you have this as locked down as you guys think it is, because we were both arrogant and young, and he was the older dog. He had won President's Club a bunch of places. He was the guy that had been a great salesperson, but he translated it over. So he'd been around the house, and he could talk shop with every customer that we brought him to, and but what he would do is he would punch holes in our thinking. He would challenge our assumptions, and then he would encourage us. Like, we would get ready to go. And even if we didn't, he probably thought there were some times we weren't going to go get this deal. And we would go into a sales presentation. He'd call us beforehand and be like, hey, or he'd call me and he'd be like, hey, you got this. Go be you, and and you're going to do great. And so he was that cheerleader. And then at the end, he'd rip my butt for missing numbers. That's okay. And that's what you expect as a salesperson.
It's one of the things that worries me a good bit these days. Now, I don't think this is true for every leader, and I meet some really great leaders, but I'm experiencing a higher number of leaders seem to lack that courage to be clear with you. So I think I've heard Dave say this about 1 million times, but clarity is kindness. And that was like with Bob, you were always clear about where you stood. And I see a lot of leaders these days, sales leaders in particular, who are tiptoeing around their people. Like, they're tiptoeing like they don't want to step on eggshells. So they're like, they'll do the rah-rah thing. But when it comes to like getting in a car with someone or sitting side by side with someone and working with them and coaching them in the moment, and when they make a mistake, point it out, coach it, and then let them do it again. When it comes to that, they are running the other direction. And it worries me. And I'm curious about what you're seeing out there.
I would agree with you. They still exist, but they're fewer and far between. You have to, Zig Ziglar always used to say, like, the person would be excited because there's a pile of manure in a room. And the reason why the person would keep shoveling is because there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. Right. That's the big thing about, you got to take your time as the leader of that organization or as the owner, depending on what the situation is, and find that person. Because if you hire somebody that's not willing to call people out or to ride with them or to do these accountability exercises, they're not going to be a sales leader for long. They're going to fail, or you're going to be mediocre. And neither of those two things are good. So I agree with you. I think you've got to find those people. If you're a sales leader and you're listening to this, like, if you do that, you are doing a disservice to your team. Like you mentioned this earlier, I think becoming a sales leader, going from a salesperson to a sales leader, becomes all about the team. becomes about the other person. And it's extremely selfish if you are willing to walk by behaviors that are not going to let them win. That's what you're hired for. That's why you make more money sometimes than they do. You have to be a person that will call them out, that you will. I had another good, we mentioned riding along. I had a mentor back in the day. I was in medical device sales. We had large geographies, and I had sales reps that were all over. I had a bunch of sales reps in Georgia where you guys live. And one of my sales leaders, I had a sales rep that I thought was doing a good job, but there was just something about it that I didn't know. Something was off. And my leader at the time, I was telling him this, and I was like, I just don't know. He's like, well, have you ridden with him? I'm like, yeah, I rode with him last quarter. I have a ride with him next quarter. He's like, when you ride with him, how long are you in the car with him? Actually, and Steve Jenkins was the guy I mentioned earlier. He also gave me this advice. And I was like, 5-6 hours. He's like, you need to ride with him for 3 days.
Yep.
And I was like, well, what do you mean 3 days? And they said, well, if you ride with him one day, most people can fake it for a day. Some people can fake it for 2 days. No one can fake it for 3 days.
That's right.
And that is the intensity that you must take your job as a sales leader. If you're not willing to do that and keep yourself away from your home, or to be in a stinky car, eating McDonald's, driving through, you're not going to be a good sales leader for a long time. You're not actually going to help these people. Like as a sales leader, we have to help them get to goals and levels that they've never been to. Sales is the greatest profession in the world because you have control of your income and you can be more successful than you ever expected if you do it right. And as a sales leader, it's your job to help them get there. They are not going to be willing, you've had athletic coaches that have made you do extra sprints and extra drills at the end because they knew you could do more than you could do. It's the same thing as a sales leader. If you don't allow them to do more than they think they can do, then you're doing them a disservice.
That's, when I'm teaching fanatical prospecting boot camps or with salespeople, they're like, this is hard. I go, it's hard because I love you. I'm telling you the truth. I'm coaching right now. I'm explaining this to you because I love you. And I want you to be able to provide for your family and to grow a career and to experience all of the goodness that sales can give you. But if I don't love you a little harder than I'm loving you right now, you're going to fail. So this is why I'm doing this. So I love what you exactly what you said. I used to have a trick when I had a field sales team and I'd be out with them. I would go out and ride with someone all day long. And that's one of the things I believe in. I'm not a fan of the sales leaders who are parachuting into deals. And then again, how long are you with your rep? Well, I just went into that deal and got out of there. No, you just went in and fed your ego.
That's exactly
you didn't get in the morning, eat the McDonald's, go from place to place to place. But I'd go out with a rep. And if I felt like the rep was like giving me a dog and pony show, like we were going to all their best customers, or you've probably seen this happen, there would be a meeting on their calendar, and I'll be like, "Are we going there?" And they go, "No, I just told them I might come by," and then they wouldn't go. So they would, at the end of the day, drop me off, especially if I was in town from someplace else. They drop me off at my hotel because I made people pick me up and drop me off. And even, by the way, with my reps that were local to me, I made them pick me up at my house and drop me back off again because I wanted to ride with them all day long. I want to see their entire process. I would smile and go, "That was a great day. I was going to get on a plane and leave, but I've changed my flight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming tomorrow." And the look on their face would be, uh-oh. And the next day I got to see what they were really doing. And then we would have a real clear conversation about what they were doing. I love that you led me into this because this is really the heart of this interview and why I want to spend time with you, because I have a saying in my world, these are my words, but I look at sales managers and my words are, if you are not in front of your salespeople, you are not working.
That's true.
So if you're not side by side with them, if you've got an inside team, if you're not out in the field with them, in the car with them, you're not doing your jobs. If you think you're in a meeting or you're leading behind a computer or you're looking at expense reports, whatever that is, that ain't the job. The job is with your salespeople. That seems to be like the harshest criticism that I can give sales leaders, because there's almost always a string of excuses that come right behind that. Even sales teams where the CEO has hired me or someone on my team to go out there and get their sales leaders in the cars with their salespeople, especially field sales teams. It's almost like a crowbar. Like you can work at it and work at it and work at it. The boss says you're going to do this. 3 weeks later, how many people are you ridden with? Well, I couldn't get it because I was doing this and solving this problem and doing this problem. I'm curious, from your standpoint, if A, do you agree with that? And B, why is it that so many sales leaders aren't training enough, coaching enough, being in the cars, being side by side, spending time with their people? Why are we having that problem?
Amen, brother. Like that's the thing the first thing that I think is you've hit the nail on the head. There's a couple of different factors that I've seen in my time. The first thing is organizations put pressure on sales leaders that are not sales focused. So as a sales leader, you don't really have a whole lot of ability to impact that. Now, what I would do when I was a field-based sales leader, or what we do here, we're all in this office and we have salespeople on phones, and our sales leaders will spend days sitting with our AEs and in listening in calls and giving real-time coaching during those things. So there's ways to do it whether you're field-based or not, but so many organizations put so much on the sales leader to do that's like the busy work or the admin work. And that is important work. I'm not saying that it's not important to fill out what you expect for the rest of the month or do your expense reports, all those types of things. But if I knew my bread was buttered by my sales team being successful, I would do those things in the evening. Okay. And I'm not a person that likes to, like, one of the things we talk about at Ramsey is family. But if I'm on the road, I'm on the road. I'm going to sit in a courtyard in Buford, Georgia. Like, that's what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go back to my hotel and I'm going to do the admin work, because the most important thing I can do to impact my team and the customers out there is to ride with them. Yep. I think the reason why people don't do it is it's emotionally difficult. It's really easy to sit in front of your computer and respond to emails. It's really easy to get in front of your computer and be on a Zoom meeting with global marketing talking about a next product launch. It's really hard to sit in a car with somebody and challenge them and see what their life is like. Because sometimes, like, let's face it, sometimes sales teams have really hard jobs. They're carrying this type of equipment to here. They're having to rush from one place to another. They're dealing with customers that sometimes are crazy. And so I didn't sometimes want to do that either. But if you're going to be down in the muck and mire with your team, then go do it. That's the way that, like, you have to get over that emotional, for me, I negotiate with myself, just like we all do. Like, well, I need to get this report off to my leader, or I need to do this. No, really what you need to do is you need to go ride with Sam, because Sam is having a hard time and he's losing ground, and you got to go figure out why. Or Sam is doing a great job, and really what I want to do is I want to go figure out what the secret sauce is and see if I can get Sam to maybe be on my future leadership idea council, or maybe have Sam lead sales training next time. Or if Shonda is out there killing it, like, she has just a unique method, like, is it replicable, or is it really just Shonda's just a unique unicorn that you just can't teach that stuff? So it's like, it's being in the field, but it's that emotional thing of like, this is so much easier and I'll look good in front of my boss. And that's a short-term win. You look great in front of your boss when your team is the number one team in the company.
And what you're saying is that goes back to the selfishness. I'm doing these things so I can look good in front of my boss, not for the better of my team. And eventually they know that, like, they get that. And oh, by the way, to do what Steve did, to know you, the only way to get to know your people is you got to go spend time with them. You go have lunch and go, what are your goals? Like, some of the best conversations I have with my reps are like, what do you want? And they're telling me what they want. And I start learning, I'm not talking about the number of calls you're making anymore. I'm talking about that swimming pool in the backyard. Yes. And I'm going to talk about it all day long until, like, you get the swimming pool.
Yes.
And I think I go back to, like, you were talking about the leaders that know their people. Bill Drew, when I wrote People Follow You, I interviewed tons of leaders, and I interviewed, I guess, got access to Bill Drew's team. And that's what they loved about him. He was always with them. And he knew them, like, he knew their families. He knew everything about them. You can't get that from behind a computer screen. And to think about how ridiculous it is when leaders are giving me all the excuses. I usually use this analogy, but the Tennessee Titans are right down the road, right? I don't know who the coach is.
Was Callahan. They fired him, so I'm not even sure who it is.
But imagine that you're the coach of the Titans.
Yeah.
Here's the fastest way to get fired, right? There's a game. And so instead of, like, being on the sideline coaching the team during the game, you're just going to go home and you're going to look at the stats coming in on your dashboard on your computer, and you're going to wait till it all comes in. And when the game's over, then you're going to send them an email and tell them what they did wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah. But that's what sales leaders do all day long. Yeah. If the coach did that, I always ask, like, how long do you think the coach would be there? Like, he'd be fired.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, like, with role playing and going through things. Like, that's really uncomfortable. I go, great. So you're an NFL coach and the whole team decides you're just not going to practice anymore. How long till you get fired?
Yes.
Because sales is a skill position, no different than an NFL player is a skill position. It's the same thing.
1,000%. I think that the comment that I have for that is, if you're not in the field or with your sales team, you become the punchline of the sales team.
Ooh, I love that.
Because salespeople, they're going to eat their young, they're going to eat their leaders if they're not doing the right thing. And I've been around sales leaders that don't want to come in the field with our team or don't want to do this, and they become a joke. It becomes a joke, which is so distracting. Like, I want to remove all distractions from our sales team. I want them to focus. If they're spending time thinking about me as a sales leader, sitting at home and I wonder what hole he's on the golf course. Like, no, like stop being the distraction.
You've got to get in the field. And when I say field, if you've got an inside sales team side by side, the job is with your people. Yes. You said something about organizations like dumping things on leaders. This is going to sound harsh. I'm over it. Like, I'm over leaders telling me the organization is dumping things on them. I'm like you. Yeah. I'm at the point where we blame the organizations and we use that as an excuse for the leaders not being with their people, but the leader's job. You chose to be a sales leader. You picked this job. You signed up for it. The job is with your people. We all know that. We all get that. This isn't like new wisdom. We've been talking about this forever.
Yes.
You have to deal with whatever the organization is throwing at you. If that means you got to work on a Saturday or you got to work at night, then that means you got to do that. We've all done that in sales. Everybody knows sales is not a 9-to-5 job, and everybody knows that sales leadership is not a 9-to-5 job. If your best salesperson broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or is having problems at home, and they got a big deal they got to close on Monday, then you better be up on Sunday night talking them off the ledge and getting them ready to go, because they got to go play in the game on Monday morning. That's the job. So if you're in those situations, you have to learn as a leader to push back on your organization. You also have to be comfortable enough understanding that, you know what, if those admin things don't get done and you're racking up all the sales for the company, you're number one on the ranking report, nobody cares.
Yes.
You got to understand that. But I'll just tell you from my background, and again, this may be a generational thing, but when I first got my very first sales team, I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I had part of Texas and Louisiana and part of Oklahoma, and Mississippi, and
that's some fun dirt.
Yeah, it was fun dirt. But I had this like Arkansas, this big old team all spread out, and I had this director of sales whose name was Joe, and I won't say his last name, and Joe's a good guy. I love Joe, but he's in Dallas, and Joe was a dashboard leader. So he's sitting there and he needs to get a report. So corporate out in California sends him a note, and I need this report, and he's just banging the phones, calling people, what have you. Well, I'm in the field. And I'm in the field 5 days a week because I got this, I took over the worst team in the company. So I had to turn this whole boat around. One day he calls me up and says, I called you 4 times a day to answer the phone. And he was mad about it. And I'm in a situation where I'm in a moment of truth, and I'm like 27 and he's in his 50s. And I just said, Joe, here's the deal. You hired me to be a leader and turn this team around. From 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm in a car with a salesperson. That's what I'm doing. And when I'm in the car with a salesperson, my phone is off, because there's nothing worse than that person driving me around and I'm on the phone all day long talking to you. And I'm not pulling my computer up, and I'm not pulling over trying to find how to get online to get you a report. I'm not going to do it. But I'll be available for you before 8 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, and I'll do those things. And here's the thing, Joe, that's what you hired me to do. If you want me to sit in the office and just be there for you to call, I'm the wrong person for this job. Send me back to South Carolina, because I'd moved to Tennessee for this. And I said it just like that, as respectfully as I could. Yeah. And he went, okay, and went away. I never had the problem again, because from his standpoint as a leader, all he was doing was just like using my time for his time. Yeah. If I didn't push back and protect my time, he was going to keep using it. And by the way, the same thing goes to salespeople. If your leader is using up your time, you got to go look at your leader and go, do you pay me to sell or do reports?
Yes.
This is the job. And so I think that leaders, young leaders especially, first of all, you've got to accept that your job is to make your people better. Your job is to get them in position to win. Your job is to help them win, not to help you win. I understand organizational politics. I understand looking better for your boss, but in sales, it's subjective. So produce the numbers and you'll get the promotion.
Yeah. The noise goes away.
Yeah. And by the way, I made that team number 1 in the company out of 52. And 9 months later, I got promoted.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier conflict.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with salespeople. Mm-hmm. And you have to be really direct. Like if you're a sales leader, there are times where you've had to have very direct conversations with customers and push them to have to make a decision. And you just did the same thing with that leader. And a lot of it is trade-offs. We talk about that all the time. Well, if you want me to do that, Joe, I expect you to have 20% less results. Which would you rather have? And you just have those blunt like conversations. Yeah.
That's why they call me Blunt.
That's right.
All right. I got some questions that JBJ, my son, he's on the podcast sometimes, put together. And these are situational. So we're going to really tap into your wisdom.
Okay.
And a lot of these are the questions that we run into all the time. Mm-hmm. We get these, and pretty much every sales team have got these people on. There's a lot of teams where you have salespeople are, at the far end, right? They crush the numbers, they hit their numbers. A lot of them are lone wolves, and the organization's got certain cultural things like using the CRM. Which in the age of AI, we need to use the CRM because it's given us a lot of data. Or there's some work rules, or you've got some cultural things that these are the cultural norms. And the high performer just says, I'm not doing any of this. We call them the entitled high performer, right? So they're a superstar, but they're undermining your systems and culture. And by the way, this sounds like we're treading both sides of the problem because we say, well, you got to push back because I'm in sales, but then on these rules, but then if you don't do those rules, it hurts the team. So you're a leader and you've got this entitled performer that's over here making up their own rules. Maybe they're not doing bad things, right? But they're undermining the culture of the team. How do you coach that? And by the way, this has been my year of this, like where a lot of my consulting clients are calling me up and going, hey, what do I do about this particular person?
Yeah. Two faces came to my mind as you're describing this in two different scenarios. I handled one of them well, and I didn't handle the other one well. I had a very similar situation, a lead rep that was for years the best in the company. When I would talk to them about the differences in the direction things are going, I made it about me and how it's going to benefit me and the organization. And that is a massive mistake. You don't win people over by talking about what's in it for me. You talk about what's in it for them. You're in sales, for crying out loud. You're a sales leader. Like, it's about sales. It doesn't sell. You're going to be selling for the rest of your life. So like continue to practice those sales skills. And I didn't do that one well. The second one had a rep that had been part of an organization that we acquired. And he came in and was, he'd done it all right, but the right changed overnight, which is a difficult thing for anybody that's been doing it successfully. When we acquired this rep, he joined the team that I was on, and I was super excited to work with this guy because although we weren't super competitive in the moment, he had such a great reputation in a market that I wanted to make some penetration in. And so sat down and really just tried to understand what his philosophy was, how he did things, and really over time, I talked to him about how things need to change, but I don't expect them to change overnight. And really just started to spoon feed into what that looked like, and really just continue to check in. Honestly, gave some options of like, hey, this new CRM. I know that you're not used to inputting things in a CRM. I know you got everything up in your brain, and that's how you talk about. It's how you think about how often you've called this customer or whatever. But in the future, we need to have these notes because one, I need to have the insight of what's going on in these deals so I can make the projections that I need to make. But it also helps me give you the support that you need in order to get these deals across. Do you want a discount? Do you want to talk about bundling? Like, what are these things? And you make it about their success. That's a huge thing. And then, especially if it's a high performer, they've earned some skin. Like, you don't just come down and bulldoze over them. That's not going to go well for you as a sales leader. And so they've earned the ability to have some rights to speak into that. Yes. And so I give them some of that. Again, it's the humility. Like, it's not always my way. I want to have this be a partnership. Like, in there's not win. If you have a sales situation where it's win and lose, and that's the way you look at it, that's not going to be a good outcome long term. Same thing with your sales team. If they're not following these new procedures, maybe it's a new training that somebody has to go in, and I need to pull them out for, an hour and a half or 2 weeks so that they can get this new sales training on a new product that we might have. Okay, well, that's great. And so let's set it up. How is this going to help you? Like, like this product that you might know a little bit about today, who are you going to sell that to? And you position it of like, what's in it for them long term? And then they get excited about it. Oh yeah, I need to go learn about this because it's a competitive product. I'm getting my face kicked in by this competitor over here. Oh, okay, now I'm going to go do it. And it's just about making it about them. And there's sometimes you're just going to have that conversation. Like, I need you to do it this way. Yep. In medical device sales, we're in a pretty legally protected group because we're selling to people who are dealing with Medicaid and Medicare. So there's a lot of rules about enticement and things that you have to be sure you're doing. And I had reps that just didn't want to do expense reports. Well, that's not going to fly. Yeah. And so then at some point you got to say, well, if you don't do these things, then you're not going to work here.
Yeah.
And that's a hard conversation, but like, I really want you to work here because you're great. You like your job, right? Yes. You like your customers? Yes. What would it be like if we had to enforce a non-compete because you couldn't work here because you made a decision to not spend 30 minutes a week to fill out your expense report? Okay. All right. And I had to earn that equity to have that conversation, but it's hard.
But the earning the equity is important because when you're right, there's sometimes with one of your ultra high performers, we call them their top, is that you got to go sit down with them and go, look, I need your help with this. That's how I say, I need your help with this.
Yes.
You know, everybody's watching you, but I need you to do this. You earn the right to do that. Like you earn the right because you built the relationship. You earn the right because you've got credibility, because they respect you. You earn the right because you were an umbrella, and you earn the right because, like with my ultra high performers, I call it the bat phone. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not spending a lot of time in the field coaching them. Yeah. I'm spending most of my time removing roadblocks so that they can be more prosperous. So when I do that and I go to them, I go, look, I've given you something, you give something back to me.
Absolutely.
I love what you talked about, like not talking about yourself. So one of the tactics, depending on what the situation is if it's like something in the CRM, I'll call a meeting and make them teach it. And so if they teach something, now it's hard for them because of the commitment and consistency bias for them to go back on the word. And the third thing that I find in a lot of cases, which is really weird for leaders, especially certain types of personalities, like you think about the DISC personalities, especially high Ds have a really hard time with this, is that they've got this salesperson who crushed it. They went to President's Club. Mm-hmm. They got a Rolex. They got a trophy. They earned, $500,000 selling. They got what the organization thinks are accolades, and they're actually behaving badly because they don't really feel appreciated. And what they really wanted was someone to go take them to lunch and sit down with them and go, we love you. You're amazing. And the organization thinks that by piling on all of these trophies, that is what they needed. And they didn't really need that. So they're acting out in order to get attention.
Yeah.
It's weird, but
it's not weird because people have different motivations. It goes back to knowing your people. Some people want the trophy. Some people want the money. Some people want the quiet, handwritten note that you slide into their briefcase as you're walking out of their car or as you're leaving the office that day. Yep. Just as a note of appreciation. And it comes down to knowing your people. Like you can watch them respond to these things. Like, we give a sales belt out every month to the person who closes the most business in our business. Of all our salespeople, there's probably people up there that really that ticks that top box of motivation. There's some people that are like, yeah, it was nice.
Yep.
And so just knowing your people, you walk over them and you give them a $50 handshake, $200 handshake, or you take them to lunch, write them a handwritten note. It's about knowing your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Spend time with them. Okay. This is one we run into a lot, and this is the plateaued high performer. So this is the rep that was hugely successful, high performer, and they're either just coasting along, so they've gotten complacent, or they're beginning to dip. Like you can see this, but we know that they can do it. We know they got talent. We know they're not personal problems. Mm-hmm. They've just stopped like finding that edge or that joy or that energy. I find that this is the place that frustrates the leaders that I work with probably more than anything else is, what do we do about these folks? A lot of organizations will bring me in and they're like, we're bringing a bunch of veterans in and we need you to explain to them that they need to work harder. And like, think about insurance companies where you've got a high performer that's got now this big book and they've got all these residuals and like they stop selling. So it's like, they go, Jeb, like, we need you to get them more motivated. And I'm thinking, oh, that's so hard.
That is so hard.
So I'm sure you've probably run into these folks in the past. First of all, why do you think it's so frustrating for leaders of all shapes and sizes when they run into these folks? And what's your prescription for how do you get them to find that fire again?
Yeah, that would be really hard to get brought in to tell a group of people that they're not performing well. That means that the leadership of that organization has abdicated their responsibility. It's frustrating because you know the potential. Mm-hmm. Like all of us, you see potential and it almost becomes the expectation. There's a lot of different reasons. And, I think that the reason why it's so frustrating is because you know what this person has done, can do, probably will do again if they find that fire, that edge, but they haven't done it and they're not doing it. And you're suffering because you're having to answer questions from your leader. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're suffering because they're probably going down the pain hole of not succeeding. And so I think it really comes down to, hopefully you have a relationship with this person. Mm-hmm. and you can sit down with them and you ask them questions. Like, they're people. We all go through things. You said there's nothing personal going on, or there's no, big, like, highlight of, like, there's a problem here. But I would just sit down and say, hey, Jeb, like, tell me what's going on. Like, how do you feel about your work? Are you still enjoying this? And you just use, I guess Chris Voss says, calibrated questions to get answers that help give you some insight, because you might not think there's a problem, but likely there is a problem. And it's really about using that relationship, cashing in some emotional chips with that person, and sitting down and saying, Jeb, you've been the highest performer. Tell me what's holding you back. Oh, this deal, this competitor, something's going on with my family, got a sick parent. There's a lot of things that you hear when you actually spend time getting to know them versus passing judgment. So sit down with them, have a conversation. And you as a sales leader, because you're in sales, you probably can smell somebody who's BSing you and not giving you the whole truth. And so what you do with that when you're with a prospect is you dig. You dig a little bit more, and you dig a little more, because reality is, if they continue to go down, they're not going to work for you anyway. And so it can be kind of that catalyst to start setting up, like, do you need more resources? Do you need some time off? Do you need some more, do you need some more me riding with you? Do you need get your mojo back? Do you want to go to some training? There's a lot of things but it starts with the questions. Don't pass judgment, ask questions.
I agree with you. I think sitting down and asking the questions and trying to understand them, I think a lot of the organizations we'll work with, that we'll see leaders who are like, well, we need to get rid of, Joe, we need to get rid of Jim.
You know how hard it is to find Joe and Jim?
I know. And you're sitting down having a conversation with them. You're like, well, wait a minute, why don't we just sit down and have a conversation? But you said earlier I think the pre-show we were talking about discipline, right? Mm-hmm. And I laughed and said discipline. Yeah. But discipline is simply sacrificing easy for what you want most. And one of the things that I find when I'm having these conversations is I'm asking questions, and I'll say something like, what do you want? And then I have an answer for it. So for so much of their career, they had this goal in mind, this target in mind, and they were shooting for, and then they got super successful. And in sales, it can be super lucrative. So they bought the house, they bought the toys, they've put savings away. They're living large, and suddenly they wake up every day and they've lost that goal. And I was in Jacksonville, Florida once with one of our top reps who had just kind of fallen into this slump and a malaise, and the director of sales wanted to fire him, and I was the vice president of sales at the time. So I'm like, let me fly in, because it's really, really hard to find people. Like, this guy's name is Jim. We're sitting down, and I'm like, Jim, like, I know you. I've watched you go to trips. I've watched you win things. I've watched the smile on your face and the joy from all of this, and you're just not doing well. And we're having these conversations with you. It's got to be miserable. And he goes, if we just step back and just ask one basic question, what is it that you want? And he sat there for a second, and he said, I want a Harley. He goes, but my wife won't let me have it. And I said, oh. I said, what would you willing to do for a Harley? He said, I'd do anything. And I said, give me your wife's phone number. And I'm not kidding you. I went out and called his wife and said, I'm sitting here with Jim. He's not doing really well. He says he wants a Harley. You won't let him have it. What do we got to work out in order for him to have this as a goal? And she goes, well, and this is Georgia, right? So she's like, I just don't want that rascal to take all his commission check and put it in the Harley. I'm trying to save for something else. And I said, well, if we could set the goals up so you could get what you wanted and he could get what he wanted, would you be willing to say yes to him? And she said yes. And I said, tell me what you want. So I got her number and I got his number, and I sat down with him and said, here's the number that we got to hit in order for you to get the Harley. And doggone if he didn't hit it.
Let's build a plan.
Yeah, all of a sudden he was there. And sometimes they're just bored. So what I'll find is that they're just bored. I'm like, okay, well, what if you help me teach the new reps? Yes. What if you mentor some people? Yes. And I've seen more fires get lit by them having purpose that's bigger than like a thing, but they see themselves as having I guess, a greater impact on the team as a whole. Yeah. But it never happens if you don't sit down with them. And I find that we start making assumptions about what they're thinking or feeling without actually having the conversation.
That's get curious. Get curious. Know your people and find out. I love that. That is a great, like that Harley story. You found a win-win. You got to keep a high performer. You got to get him fired back up, and then he's going to get to go have his Harley, and his wife is going to be happy. That's awesome. I I wish I had known that earlier. I
And
would have
we also
conversations.
we would have an awards trip every year, and so we wouldn't send it to the rep. We would send it to their wife, addressed to them with flowers.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed at, and I say wife, and we had husbands too,
Yeah.
but I was in a pretty much male-driven business. But
Sure.
but you got a picture of the cruise ship and everything going there. Trust me, they come to work the next day howling, I can't believe you sent that. Like, yeah, somebody's going to hold you accountable, and you're more scared of her than you are of me. So,
Well, and that spouse sacrifices a lot to be married to a salesperson because we're maniacs and we work like it's not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, the number of times that I'd call my wife and say, hey, I should be home around 6, and I'd roll in at 7:30, and she'd just look at her watch and say, Jason time.
my wife is sitting in this room, and she'll tell you about the times when, I'm in my mid-20s and I'm selling, and we would sit in the living room on Saturday mornings and put proposals together because I believe that time was money, and I wasn't putting proposals together during the week when I should be talking to to customers.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one that comes up all the time that's a real headache for leaders, and it is a rep who is average, right? They're mediocre. They could be better. I'm not saying their talent's average, but their performance is average. They get this massive ego, and they think they're way better than they are. I see you smiling, so hit a nerve.
Big hat, no cattle, I guess is
big
what
hat,
they'd
no
say
cattle.
in Texas. The good thing about being on sales teams most of the time is the sales team will take care of that for you as the sales leader, but you don't want to just rely on that.
Yep.
It comes down to setting clear expectations and hold people accountable. And it sounds like a broken record, but like their ego is big because they are not aware that they're not performing at the level they should be.
Mm-hmm.
We have a thing that we say sometimes here. You may be doing okay, but you're not producing at the level that we need out of this seat.
Yes.
And that's an important thing because, somebody might have a financial target that they need to hit, especially at Ramsey. We're all about working on a budget and those types of things. They might need X amount of money per month. And if they're hitting that number, they feel comfortable and they're not pushing themselves to actually exceed that number, which I don't understand as a salesperson. You probably have made a bad hire if that's the idea. But, if you as a sales leader, if they're continuing to miss their quota or miss whatever target you've set for them, but they are comfortable, there's a gap there. There's an expectations gap. And honestly, I love the fact that you're hitting your budget, but don't you want to go do more? It's kind of having those conversations. And by the way, I need more out of this seat. And so just setting clear expectations and then holding them accountable. Like, when they come in, some people have a natural swag, and you don't ever want to take away a person's swag, but having them have realistic expectations of what you think their performance is important.
Yeah, I've actually found that taking away the swag sometimes is the key here.
It can be.
So, because it's really frustrating because it's not only that these people have a big ego, but they push back really hard on your coaching.
Sure.
So they're a wall. Like, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I understand how it's supposed to be done. So what we'll sometimes do with them is recognizing that people will typically only change their behavior when they can see a negative implication to themselves or to other people.
Sure.
So if you've got a really good relationship with them, one of the things you can do is sit down with them and say, your performance here on our team as a whole, like, it's killing us because I have to go to my boss and I'm reporting these numbers and I'm getting banged on because of your number.
Yeah.
So if you've got a great relationship with them, you can use that. Hey, it's hurting me.
Absolutely.
The flip side of that is this is getting them to rock bottom. If this doesn't change, here's the consequence to you.
Yes.
So it's almost having to bring that ego and break it a little bit to get them to pay attention, because otherwise, like you said, they're going to ego their way right out of the business, because nobody has fun dealing with a person who says, I know it all, when you don't know it all. And you're a good coach, right? So you get your joy as a coach. I'm putting words in your mouth from watching people succeed.
Yes. Yes. From seeing that person who never thought they'd own a house in that neighborhood, have a house in the neighborhood, and see that person. Yes, I agree. Like that's where my biggest joy, it's kind of like going back to the rep in Jacksonville. I had a bunch of a success as a salesperson, made a lot more money than I ever expected a kid from upstate New York and from a farm town to make. And then it was like, okay, what's the next significance? And it was really like leading through other people and helping them achieve these things that I never thought were possible. So, you gave that guy from Jacksonville a purpose. And that's why I love doing what we do here.
So before we wrap up, when I've got sales leaders on like you, I always give you an opportunity to pitch why someone would want to come work for Ramsey Solutions. I know you're always looking for great people.
Yeah.
So this is almost like an employment advertisement.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So talk to us. Why is this a great place to bring your sales career?
We're not a perfect organization. but we try really hard. I've been in a lot of organizations where you get either somebody that's real hot for the mission and somebody they're sitting in the seat next to them, somebody that's real cold. Everybody here is on fire to serve, and it's really neat. We're a missional driven organization. We say we're on a crusade. It's not like the crusades that you imagine, but we really want to make an impact on the world. And if you're a salesperson and you love small businesses, reach out. Go to EntreLeadership.com. At the bottom, there's a page, there's a thing for careers, or you can go to Ramsey Solutions. And you can look at all that. We have over 1,000 people in this building, and we're really sold out to make a difference because there are a lot of hurting people out there in the world, and we want to be a person that brings hope to their lives. That's the goal, is bringing hope. And I have had conversations with sales leaders and or salespeople, and they're like, I'm not passionate about the thing that I'm selling. You got to find what you're passionate about. Find something. That's why the small business attached to my heart is because I saw my family struggle in it.
The thing that I love about your salespeople, so Jonathan is Sales Gravy, he's Ramsey salesperson, and he has been able to build a relationship with us over time. I don't even know how much money he's extracted from my wife over here, who just keeps sending you guys checks. He's a part of us and we love him. We like seeing him. So if you're a salesperson who really likes building deep relationships and holding on to those relationships over a long haul, it feels like this is a really good place for you because you encourage that.
Yes.
I met one of your reps. It's not in your group, but in another group. His name's John. He came by and he's like, I love sales. I love being here. And I've read your books. And you look at him and he's so happy to have this opportunity. 2 more of your reps came by. We talked to them and told them that I'd changed all the interview questions. So
that was Dane. He told me you're changing.
But people genuinely have fun. They enjoy it. It's a great place, this building and the cafe and being a part of an organization that makes such a big impact. It's a great place to bring your career.
We work hard. It's hard work, but it's super rewarding because I get to interview and work with people like you guys and hearing the stuff that your wife has said, like the compliments you gave about the impact we've had. Like, I just can't imagine that we're a small piece of the success you guys are having. Like, I love watching what you guys do at Sales Gravy. And, it's funny, real quick about Jonathan. If you're a sales leader, you should always be looking for people. Yep. And my sales leader had his air conditioner go out. And it was an older unit in his house. And a guy showed up at his house, put booties on when he walked in, had a conversation with both the guy and his wife about a very expensive purchase. And the next day, that sales leader came in and said, I found our next sales rep. And it was Jonathan.
I love that.
And it was just the way that he cared and how he answered every question. And it's just the heart of him. And so you can find, I remember my old sales leader found a guy working, I went to Belk and was buying shoes and hired a guy and was one of the most successful people. So Jonathan's he's a stud. And if you want to come work here, we're looking for more people to have an impact on businesses and around people that have working on their finances.
Fantastic. Jason Williams, EntreLeadership, Ramsey Solutions. Thank you for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast. And by the way, if you want to hone your leadership skills or you're a rep that wants to become a leader, go to outboundconference.com. In Las Vegas next year, we will have a full sales leadership conference on our 3rd day. It's got incredible speakers. Some of the finest minds in leadership are going to be there. And the entire Outbound experience is something that you've probably never experienced before. We call it an event like none other. It is the rock show of sales. Go to outboundconference.com, outboundconference.com. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy podcast.
The Sales Gravy podcast is sponsored by Nooks. Nooks replaces the Sales Loft plus Apollo plus Gong headache with one unified CRM-first agent workspace. One place for prospecting, dialing, and AI-driven sequencing with no sync delays and no duplicate data. When it comes to your sales stack, stop tool hopping and start winning with Nooks. Simplify your outbound today at nooks.ai. That's NOOKS.ai.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.